Hi, thank you for joining us for the first Q&A webinar for the Technology Innovation Challenge. The session is being recorded and will be made available next week on our website at technologyinnovationchallenge.org. Please be sure you're on mute and feel free to enter any questions into the chat. This is Christabel Ziliena, and I'm the Program Officer with Common Pool. Common Pool is partnering with the County of LA to build and manage the Tech Innovation Challenge. To get things started, I'm pleased to introduce Phil Ansell, LA County Homeless Initiative Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Phil Ansell. I'm the Director of the Los Angeles County Homeless Initiative. I want to thank you for your interest in the Technology Innovation Challenge. We have been extremely pleased with the level of interest within the vendor community from the outset of this process, which is now in the actual procurement phase. I'll just make a couple of introductory comments. Homelessness is an extraordinary crisis confronting Los Angeles County, characterized by an extremely complex set of causes and of needed solutions to face. In this context, there's a role for everyone to play. Every individual, every organization, every sector in bringing our homeless neighbors home. In particular, we believe that technology innovation can make a critical contribution to the countywide movement to prevent and combat homelessness. And we believe that as a vendor community, you have creative and innovative ideas which will help the thousands of service providers who are assisting our homeless neighbors to move to permanent housing in making their work more efficient and more effective, while at the same time assisting people experiencing homelessness to help themselves in moving back into permanent housing. It's because we have that belief in your innovation and creativity that we have structured this challenge in the way we have, where we have identified somewhat broad categories of interest where we believe that technology innovations can make a critical contribution. But as you know, the challenge does not specify in detail or provide detailed requirements, unlike many more traditional or conventional requests for proposals. Instead, we've provided a broad outline of the what, and we're looking to our future partners in the vendor community to propose to us both the specific what, the specific substance within each of the four challenge categories, as well as the how you would go about achieving the solutions that you proposed. And we are hopeful and optimistic that this structure will unleash the depth of your innovation and creativity, which we further expect will be fueled by a shared sense of both passion and compassion to bring our homeless neighbors home. So with that, I'm delighted to pass the microphone, as it were, to my colleague, Bill Kehoe, Los Angeles County's Chief Information Officer.
Hey, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today. This is a culmination, this RFP is a culmination of an idea that Phil and I partnered with over a year ago, which is there was a lot of our industry partners that really wanted to help as much as they could with the homeless situation in LA County, and we're always inquiring as to what were the problems and offering solutions that have been done in other jurisdictions. And Phil and I partnered and decided to move forward with this approach, which is to actually get to this point where we're letting you innovate around challenge statements, challenge projects, so that you know what we need in LA County. These are 4 areas. Obviously, there's a lot of these, but these 4 areas were prioritized, starting with a workshop and with the Homeless Initiative Program, academia, and our community partners that led to an RFI and a very successful vendor forum around that RFI. We received 53 responses to that RFI. We didn't score those, but they were utilized to prioritize and inform the 4 projects that are part of this RFP. So that's the background. And what we want to do today is go through each of the 4 projects. I'm not going to go through in detail on these projects because you obviously are aware of the website and the information on the website, so I don't want to regurgitate what's already there. But we do want to answer any questions you have around each of the 4 project areas. Now, I will say that this is not your traditional RFP, as Phil indicated, where we're giving you very specific prescriptive requirements. This is an RFP where we're asking you to innovate, and we're keeping the requirements very minimal and very general to allow for all of you to participate and for your teams in your respective organizations to come together and look to see what you can do based on your products and services to help us move forward in these critical areas. So things like specific business requirements, specific technical requirements, you're not going to find here. So if your questions are, I would like to see very specific requirements around each of these areas, we're not going to do that, but we're happy to answer any other questions that you want. This is very open, and we're not prescriptive in terms of any product or solution area. But there are some things that you'll see in all 4, one of which is a user-centered design methodology for all 4 areas, so that part of your response should be that you will perform a user-centered design first phase, if you will, of the project. And that's so that we can, as you design your product or your proposal, that you can actually really get to what the user, in this case, the homeless community, needs. So that is a requirement for each of the 4 project areas. There are some very high-level technical recommendations, if you will, within each of the areas as well as some programmatic and some business-related ideas to spark your innovation that are on the website as well. So what we want to do now is go through each of the areas, each of the projects, solution areas that are on the website. And we're going to start with a centralized customer portal and take any questions that you may have around that. So the centralized customer portal, for those of you that aren't on the website, is to expand access to services, improve application and form submission processes, and real-time tracking of housing. Currently, the services that are available to the homeless community, there are many. However, it is very difficult for the homeless individual to really understand what they're eligible for, how to get to the specific service they need, And we believe a common centralized portal would help that situation tremendously. So at this point, we'll take your questions. If you could type in your question related to the customer portal, and then Phil and I and others in the room will attempt to answer those. I will say that if there's questions that we can't answer or we would like to think about after this webinar, we will put the responses out in written form if we can't speak to the response.
This is Phil Ansel. Before we go to your questions, I do want to note that we've received some number of questions, people participating in the webinar that are having difficulty hearing the audio. We are monitoring the audio, and it seems like it's fine. So if you are listening and having any trouble with the audio, we would ask that you email us on the site to tell us that. And I'm going to ask Tanay Dixon, who's been the lead on this effort for the Homeless Initiative, to just say a word about what you should be seeing on your screen and what you might be able to do if you're having any trouble with the audio.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So at this point in the webinar, you should be able to see on the screen, we're sharing the screen of the Tech Innovation Challenge website, and then there should be a sidebar dialog box with a chat box that will allow you to type in questions. From there, and I'm just communicating with our IT team, is there any other button they need to push to be able to see the audio? Or to hear the audio? Okay, just make sure your speaker is on, and that's it.
Right. So if you are listening since you're listening through your computer, if you can't hear, it may be that the volume on your computer is off or that your computer volume is muted. But if you are signed in to the webinar, there's nothing additional you need to do to be able to hear the audio. All right. So the first question is, are you expecting vendors to propose for all four, or can a vendor propose in 1, 2, or 3?
Okay, this is Dick Evo. I'm yelling into the speaker. I don't know if that's doing any good or not, but I'm yelling into the speaker. That's a great question, and I'm glad it came up first. Vendors can propose on 1 project, 2 projects, 3 projects, 4 projects. So there's no requirement in terms of proposing on all 4. You can propose on 1, and you'll be considered for that project. You could also propose for more than 1. So, and all 4. It's up to you.
All right, good. Thank you very much. The second question, are you expecting vendors to propose all 4, or can a vendor, pardon. So this next question is, delivery costs have many drivers, 2 of which are data migration and integrations. What data are you providing in those areas? Phil?
So that's another good question, and given that we don't have specific requirements around those areas, that's really going to depend on the solution you're proposing. So if you're proposing a portal solution or a digital service, and you expect that there's going to be some data integration associated with that solution, then I would encourage you to include that in your bid. But to be specific about what those migrations are and what those integrations are, again, that would depend on your proposal. We would make available to you the data sets that you would need, and if it required an API integration or a web service type of integration, then you would be responsible, obviously, for providing that API to your solution, and then we would be responsible for working with you on the other end of the county system to provide either an API or a way to extract that data.
The next question is, are there any metrics available in terms of where and from which devices members of the homeless community access web resources? So that probably comes to me. I am not specifically aware of that. However, I can share 3 related responses. First, a substantial number of people experiencing homelessness do have smartphones. And therefore, I'm not aware of specific data, but it's a pretty high percentage. So I do feel safe saying that smartphones are likely the type of device that would be most used by people experiencing homelessness. Secondly, we know that some number of people experiencing homelessness utilize public libraries to access the internet. And then finally, we know that the Department of Public Social Services, which serves a much broader low-income population, including but not limited people experiencing homelessness, has found that a very high percentage of their clients have regular access to email and the internet. Okay, moving on to the next question. Is the customer portal intended to be a fully deployed system, or is this more of a pilot?
This would be a fully deployed system, and I would say that what we're looking for may not be the full solution, but the foundation, and hopefully that makes sense to folks, and if not, we can expand upon that in a future response. But we want the foundation. We want the foundation that can scale. We want the foundation where we could load links and applications and other services onto that platform or foundation. So obviously, we want a deployable solution and not a pilot. We're not calling this a pilot in terms of what you would deliver.
I know we can't have, here's the next question. I know we can't have projects that span across solution areas, but will it be okay to refer to a potential integration between a project in the portal solution area and a solution in mobile, for example? Complementary solutions, if you will.
Yes, that would be preferred. Obviously, if you're going to put forward a proposal for a mobile application, and you're also responding to the portal, then how going through the portal would access that mobile application, especially if it's going to be retrieving or looking at services that are available for the homeless population, then yes, you could point that out in your solution area.
However, I would add to that there is no guarantee that a proposer who bids in multiple areas would prevail in any of the areas or in more than one. So I would add to the response that I would recommend that any proposal in one of the areas be freestanding so that it could be selected as the winning proposal regardless of whether the same bidder's proposal in another category was selected. But that said, it would be fine to include information about how two or more proposals in two or more areas could fit together if they were both selected.
Yes, it's good information.
Okay, the next question is, what is the individual budget for each of the four categories? I believe that is specified in the project website, which is a maximum of $500,000 for the portal, $500,000 for customer-driven mobile digital services, $200,000 for the geo-mapping hub and resources, and $200,000 for operational porting of performance outcomes. All right, on to the next question. What data do we have available from HMIS or other county data? What data sources are available for real-time tracking of available housing? I can answer that question. The selected vendors will have access to the full scope of data in HMIS, as well as the other key county data systems, which I believe are described somewhere on the website, including the Department of Health Services relevant system known as CHAMP, relevant data from the Department of Mental Health and the Department of Public Social Services, and other county systems. With respect to available housing, there is not currently a comprehensive site that identifies all available affordable housing in Los Angeles County. There is a contract between LAHSA and People Assisting the Homeless regarding housing specifically available for people experiencing homelessness who have some form of rental subsidy. That these have been essentially located resources. It's not comprehensive. And then there is another website maintained by the Los Angeles County Development Authority, which identifies available rental housing at various income levels. I do note that there are many questions here that don't relate specifically to the portal, which is where we started. I think it probably makes sense to just keep going on a flow basis, and therefore if you have questions related to any of the four challenge areas, it's probably fine to go ahead and input them now. And as we're seeing, there is crossover among some of the questions as well. All right, the next question is, how much support from agencies listed can we expect or require with our response? How much user-centered design is expected before the proposal compared to during the project? Well, I'll answer the first question and defer to Bill on the second. On the first, I think that you can expect full support programmatically in terms of information relative to whatever programs are at issue for a particular solution from Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, the Department of Health Services, the Department of Mental Health, and other county departments that are involved in the homeless services system, as well as from the Los Angeles County Development Authority, and I suspect from the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles as well, which are the two largest public housing authorities in Los Angeles County. Similarly, as we previously noted, the key data from those systems, particularly those that I previously mentioned, will be available. Now, on the second question, though, I defer to Bill.
Okay, the second question, just to repeat the question, how much user-centered design is expected before the proposal? And I assume that means before this proposal submit, compared to during the project. So there's no expectation, unless, but that's totally up to you, that you perform user-centered design before you submit a proposal. But it is a big part of the first phase, if you will, and it's also 25% of the scoring rubric for this RFP. It's very important you describe your methodology around user-centered design based on what the proposal that you're submitting for. And we would expect that the user-centered design would occur before any UI UX type design, so that whatever is developed really meets the needs of the homeless individuals.
And families. Is there an underlying assumption that the customer portal will require an associated caseworker portal, or does that caseworker portal already exist, which this new solution will need to integrate with? So there is no system-wide caseworker portal at this time. The closest thing to a system-wide caseworker portal is the Homeless Management Information System. And additionally, through the implementation of AB 210 in Los Angeles County, there is being implemented now an online query system known as the Countywide Homeless Information Portal, which enables authorized caseworkers and other authorized parties to query the system to access information on current and past service history across systems for people experiencing homelessness. We are expecting that the portal that would be developed under this part of the challenge list category would be of value to both people experiencing homelessness and staff working in the homeless services system. But there is a requirement for a separate portal for caseworkers, nor a requirement to interface directly for purposes of a caseworker portal. However, there obviously inherently would be a requirement to pull data from key source systems, including the Homeless Management Information System. Okay, move on now to the next question. We are curious if some of the current technologies in place, we are curious about some of the current technologies in place that we can potentially integrate with. Do you have a current CRM or other major systems we would need to integrate with?
So we tried to stay away from specifying that you have to use existing platforms in the county. There are CRM systems in the county, but there is not, I would say, a central CRM platform that's a standard for the county. So again, it would really depend on your solution and the type of platform that you're proposing. We are utilizing the Salesforce platform. We're for our public defender case management system. We're using CRM Dynamics with Microsoft in several areas, both on-premise and in the cloud. But we don't have what I would say a standard that we're asking you to comply with.
Okay, I'd like to clarify that we are now open for questions on anything related to the challenge in any of the four categories. We're interested in addressing questions in all four areas. We don't want to focus specifically the questions on the portal to the detriment of time on the others, and we do only have a limited time for this webinar. So at the moment, we're not going to be skipping over questions about the portal, but if there are a lot more questions on the portal and others pending in other areas, we may skip over some of the portal questions.
Then we'll answer those after the webinar.
In writing. Yeah. Okay. All right, very good. Are there geographic areas within LA County that these solutions should focus on, or does it not matter as long as it is a solution that is working within the county? We have not identified any specific geographic areas, and it is generally our expectation that the resulting solutions would be available countywide. Next question. How do we address financial leverage when an organization already has funding? Can we allocate efforts spent on this grant and charge to the budget amount? If I'm understanding the question, we certainly welcome proposals where the resulting product would be supported by both funding through this process and other funding available to the proposer. Next question. Can we put forth a platform solution that entails all 4 categories, or do they have to be split up as independent solutions? So, as I mentioned previously, each of the 4 solutions will be independently evaluated. So, if a bidder chooses to submit the proposal that would only work if that bidder won in all 4 categories, it would be a high-risk approach. So the recommendation is to, even if there is an interrelationship among them, the proposals, the recommendation is that each component or each proposal, piece of the proposal in the 4 categories, be structured so that the bidder has an opportunity, could potentially win in one without being dependent on winning in more than one.
I would also add that you certainly can propose the same platform if you're bidding in all 4 categories, and you can indicate in your proposal that the same platform was proposed for all 4 solutions, but that's not going to improve your scoring, and you got to really make sure that each proposal can be independently scored. So that's what it said.
Okay, next question. My sound was cut out in the beginning. Could the speakers at some point repeat their names? Yes, this is Phil Ansell, Director, Los Angeles County Homeless Initiative.
And Bill Kehoe, Chief Information Officer for LA County.
Next question. There's language in the application that makes it seem as if the award amounts are specifically for implementing/integrating the solution, which means that the vendor would have to secure additional funding to develop the solution. Can you speak more to your expectations here?
Not quite sure.
I understand the question just to clarify, we're intending that the selected bidder would both design and deliver the solution so to the point that we would be able to use it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all encompassed in the proposal, both the implementation and the integration.
And the design.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Will COC data be available to utilize? COC means continuum of care. The answer is yes. The data from the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority Homeless Management Information System will be available. That covers all of the Los Angeles continuum of care except for the city of Santa Monica. And it covers the 2 independent continuums of care in Glendale and Pasadena. I do not believe it currently includes Long Beach, but there is discussion about including Long Beach. Next question. The awards do not consider ongoing maintenance costs. Have you contemplated this? How should we address this in our response?
Yes, we purposely did not address that, and we're asking you to put your proposal together that would not include ongoing maintenance. However, if you have a good understanding of what that ongoing maintenance would look like, you can certainly add that to your proposal, but it's certainly not anything that we're scoring.
And the maintenance cost would be beyond the amount available through this solicitation. Next question. You mentioned that the portal project is not a pilot. Are any of the 4 projects considered pilots?
No, none of the projects will be considered pilots.
Next question. The county usually mandates vendors to register and qualify for different contract types that exist. Is this requirement waived?
Yes.
Next question. What else is on the scoring rubric? Okay, we will come back to that. The head of Common Pool is here with us, and we'll reserve the last few minutes of today's webinar for discussion, a presentation which will include addressing that question. I'm wondering if the expectation is that our proposal should include a plan to roll out the technology, or if the focus is only on the development.
So again, because we didn't want to be too specific on each of the project areas, proposal areas, we did not specify a rollout plan, but obviously we're going to be very interested in proposals that do have a rollout plan, a deployment plan, a testing plan, and it's not just about the development, but also, depending on the solution, the county would have a role, obviously, in deploying the technology as well.
But Bill, can you clarify to what extent the vendor's costs associated with rollout need to be encompassed within the amount specified?
Yes, it should include that cost, depending on the solution.
Okay, next question. How do we write on the budget a line item of developer who is currently a full-time employee?
So this is Jason Morning. This is more of a technical question. When you're composing your budget as it relates to the amount requested for the solution area, that needs to sum to the total amounts prescribed for the solution area. So all of your labor-related costs need to be direct costs. We do not need to see the total salary paid to employees who may be working on other projects. You just need to dedicate the amount of cost as it relates to the proposal.
Thank you, Jason. Planning to attend the Greater Los Angeles homeless count, where will the data be inputted? So this is a question about the Greater Los Angeles homeless count that will be conducted next week. The results of the count will not be available until the end of May, and therefore will not be available by the deadline for submitting proposals. Next question, does the technology we propose have to be integrated into LA County's software afterwards for the pilot, i.e. integrated into HMIS and Clarity?
Okay, let me try to answer this, but you might want to resubmit a question based on my response if I haven't answered the question. So not knowing what your proposal is, I would kick that back to you to ask you, based on your proposal, does it have to be integrated into LA County software? And my answer would be no, but it will also be dependent on the type of proposal that you're submitting.
Next question, for the 3 to 6 month timeline, are we expected to pilot it in the entire county?
Again, very dependent on the type of proposal and what you're doing, whether it would necessitate. And I'm going to stay away from the word pilot because we've answered that a couple times now that these are not pilots. But in terms of the communication to the county, that could be an aspect of your proposal. But again, if there's more to that question that we're not answering, please resubmit.
Yeah. This question relates to the language on the website under the section integration that reads, operating under a 3 to 6 month project period, explain how you will build upon and integrate within the existing systems or technologies currently serving the needs of those facing homelessness in LA County. I understand this language to refer to 3 to 6 months from selection to delivery of the funded project. And so it's within that time frame how you build upon and integrate. That's we're not expecting that the solution will be implemented during that 3 to 6 months. It's that by the end of that 3 to 6 month period, the then selected vendor would deliver the solution so that we could then implement it. Next question. Should a platform solution vendor register for the challenge even though that vendor would be a subcontractor to a prime or SI?
So I would say that the prime or SI should register and then indicate the any subcontractors that you're partnering with.
Right. So there's no requirement for a proposed subcontractor to register.
No.
All right. Next question: is priority given to ESMA or ITMSA contract participants?
No. We actually wanted to stay away from ESMA and ITMA because we felt it would be limiting in terms of the proposals we would receive.
Next question: are historically disadvantaged companies given extra consideration?
No. No.
Next question: will these questions and answers be posted on the website?
So this is Jason. We're going to be going through all the questions and answers. Some of them are redundant, so we're going to be answering every question as it relates to every theme. And for those that don't know, I'm going to get to this in my portion of the webinar, but the purpose of this is really to convince those who have not registered to register. If you have not registered and you're participating in this webinar, please do so. Once you've registered, you'll be able to enter the back end of the website, which will allow you to access forums. And in the forums, we will be answering some of these questions, and you'll be able to continue asking questions there. In addition to that, on the front of the website, we have a questions and answer page, a dedicated page, where the public can come and see what those questions are. So we'll be posting some or all of them, both on the back end or the front end.
And also, we will be posting, I believe, the recording of this webinar. Next question: will all project-related products and tools be provided by LA, such as bug tracking, sprint planning, traceability of requirements to functions developed, design tools, etc.?
My recommendation would be you would bring that to us as part of your proposal.
Next question: when's the last date for us to submit questions, and will the due date timeline for the RFP be available after we register? So the due dates for the RFP are available on the website, and Jason will address that. And Jason will also address shortly the last date to submit questions. Next question: from a cloud security standpoint, will you require FedRAMP certification and or FIPS 140-2?
So that's going to depend on the type of data that your solution requires. If there's PII or CGIS data or HIPAA data, related data as part of your solution, then obviously the security requirements are ramped up. I don't think we specified FedRAMP certification or FIPS in our security requirements, but again, it would depend on the data and what your solution needs and where that data would be stored.
What is the best way to submit questions regarding these challenges? So Jason will address that momentarily. We're getting ready to switch over. Next question: are LA-based companies given extra consideration?
No.
No. And that concludes the questions we have received to date. We are right on schedule. I'm delighted to turn it over to Jason Morgan, the head of Common Pool, to talk about the other issues related to the challenge.
Okay, everyone, so thank you for your time. One of the things that we set out to do in creating this website and building this competition was to make it very clear, very accountable and transparent about what's required of you, when that's required, and at what cost to you. And so when you go to the website, technologyinnovationchallenge.org, the first thing that you'll see is that there are multiple calls for you to register as an individual, okay? And so the registration deadline is about 10 business days from today, It's January 30th of this year, okay? And so you need to register for several reasons, one of which is that only registrants can complete the application, okay? The second reason is that the application deadline is after the registration deadline. The application deadline is actually February 25th of this year. And so register first. By registering, you can come in, you can ask questions as you're composing your application. You can do that through the forums on the back end of this website. You can also, if you don't have the appetite right now to register, you can go to the bottom, the footer of every web page that we have on the site, and you can click the contact button, and there you can submit a question directly to our ticketing service so that we can answer it directly to you. However, please know that after the registration deadline, we're going to be focusing the vast majority of our resources on answering questions to the registrant community. So please register today. We'll be having other webinars for the registrants after this one, and we encourage you to participate in them as well. So oftentimes when people come to these websites, the first thing they want to know is, what do I have to do? What's it going to cost me to apply? What's required of this? And so what I'd encourage you to do is go to the menu in the upper right-hand corner. You can click on Application, and there you're going to see a static version of the application form. So you can read through that, and you can begin to assess whether or not you want to participate based on what's in that application. And there's a lot of detail in there. So please spend time reading through the application before you agree to apply. The second question we often get asked is, okay, now I know what I've got to do, but how am I going to be scored? And this is where we go through a lot of detail explaining exactly what's expected of you. You go to the menu and you click on Scoring Process. You can then click on Scoring Rubric, okay? And there you can see that there are 4 traits in our scoring rubric. They are equally weighted. An example of one of those traits is the first one, which you'll see is human-centered. Underneath that labeled trait, you're going to see one or more questions which are intended to clarify the definition of the label, or human-centered. As you scroll down, you're going to see that there is a 5-point scale for the trait of human-centered. And as you take your cursor and you toggle back and forth between these single integer scoring ranges, you're going to see there are pre-populated definitions that will appear. This is important to you because this allows you to reverse engineer the process. This allows you to understand what we define as a high-scoring application for that trait and what we describe as a low-scoring application for that trait. You also see there are anchor words at the extreme end of each of these scales. We want to give you as much information as possible so you can write the best possible application. This is exactly the interface that our judges are going to use as they're scoring your application. But those judges are not only going to resolve a score for each of these traits, they're also going to provide a comment to justify that score. So one of the value propositions of this competition is that when you're done, you're going to get a package of scores and comments from the 5 judges that are going to be assigned to you. Okay? This is a distributed scoring process, which means that not every judge is going to look at every application, which means we now need to address the question of fairness. What would happen if you, as one applicant, were assigned 5 easy graders, while another applicant, a competitor of yours, is assigned 5 hard graders? So we've addressed that on the website. If you go to the menu, you click on Scoring Process, and then you click on Level Playing Field, you can see a detailed and layman description of how we statistically normalize those scores. And this is rescaling of scores based on 2 different measures of distribution. If you're not into math, or if you think that this is taking it too far, there is a layman's, easy-to-understand narrative that surrounds these graphs and these formulas. We really just want to make sure everyone is playing on a level playing field. That's the purpose of telling you all this information, and we want to provide you with some assurances of that. The next thing I want to focus on is, as you go to the menu again, you can go up and you can see what we call the rules. Now, the rules include things like eligibility criteria. You need to register, but know that you are registering as an individual. You as an individual will be representing an organization. Individuals are not allowed to apply. Registrants as individuals are representing organizations. An organization could be a for-profit organization, a non-profit organization, or government agency. Now, I want to clarify something that was said earlier today. Previously, when Bill was describing how you could apply in multiple categories, you as a single registrant can only apply to propose a solution in one solution area. If you belong to an organization, you need to have a fellow representative of that organization register separately in order to submit a second application in a second solution application. We'd like to see groups of individuals, if not groups of organizations, collaborating as part of the solution. So if you are one organization, if you have another organization as part of your team, that organization can also register to one or more individuals. So just remember that semantics of our system are such that the individual represents an organization, and a registrant can only submit one application. Okay. There are other eligibility criteria and rules and legal terms and conditions that you'll find on this webpage. We encourage you to read through those and to understand the obligation that you're making and the expectations that the county has of you. Okay, and lastly, I want to go to the timeline. Okay, you can go to the timeline through the menu. I've already mentioned the first key date, which is our registration deadline of January 30th. The next key date is the application deadline of February 26th. Then after that, in both February and March, we're going to be conducting an administrative review of every submission that we receive to make sure it meets the rules, that it meets the eligibility criteria, and the other terms and conditions that are published on the website. After that, you can see that the evaluation panel is going to be judging each of the applications, scoring and commenting on each assigned application for each individual judge. That occurs during March and April. Then in April and May, we are going to select a certain number of finalists. Those finalists will then be informed that they have to begin preparing for a second set of assessment criteria. And so they are going to be preparing for a pitch event that will occur in June. So finalists must be prepared to come and present their proposal at a pitch event. And at that pitch event in June, we're going to be selecting the awardees. Okay, so if you've heard that timeline and you have questions, one of the things that we often hear as well, I know what I've got to do, I know how I'm going to be scored, but who are making these decisions? And there you can go to the menu and you can realize the identity of the judges. You can go to meet the judges and you can see who those folks are. We're going to be onboarding more judges if we need them. And so you can begin to see exactly who are going to be scoring your applications. Now, there will be a random distribution initially, and then we're going to be matching judges' expertise with your particular application category. So you can see who they are. You don't know who will be scoring yours until we've looked at your application, but you can begin to understand exactly who those folks are. So I'm going to stop there. We have just enough time to answer questions about what's on the website and or what we need to do to clarify what's on the website. And again, thank you so much for your time, and we hope you register within the next 10 business days.
So let's see, are there any questions that are remaining? How will the pitches work for the final rounds of the challenge? What will happen at the pitches? Jason?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of these, and we're still working on some of the details, but often the way this happens is that we will have finalists preparing to make a verbal presentation on a stage in front of a panel of final selection committee. And so they're going to be given a certain amount of time, they're going to be given an equal amount of time, and their job is to be convincing and persuasive to the selection committee members as it relates to their solution area, their category. There's a lot more to come on that, but usually these are events that are heavily attended, including other funders who often invest in homelessness solutions. And so our job is to provide you with opportunity just both to realize the county's funding for this initiative, but also to give you exposure and access to other people with discretionary capital so they can perhaps support any of those that the county decides to pass on.
Making sure I understand this correctly, I registered for 2 challenge areas using 2 different email addresses that I have. Based on what the speaker just said, another individual in my organization must register for the second challenge area, though I will be managing those responses. My 2 different email addresses is not sufficient for 2 challenge areas.
So we can accept 2 different email addresses if that is 2 different applications. So the point here is what we're trying to avoid is this notion that one person is going to be submitting hundreds of applications. What we really want you to do is focus your resources on the best possible application that you can deliver. That's why we've really kind of limited single individuals to really registering once. However, if you are a highly credible organization with a deep bench and 2 great ideas, and you want to register twice using different email addresses, you can technically do that. It is technically possible. But what we prefer is that those resources are focused on the best possible application for that team and organization, and then separately, another individual will be leading the effort to submit a second equally sophisticated and compelling application.
Okay, so Jason, just to clarify this, a given organization is allowed to submit 1 proposal in each category. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So the limitation is that the same person or organization cannot submit more than 1 proposal in the same category. Is that right? That's correct. All right, good. All right, so we only have about, we have 3 minutes to go. We'll answer whatever remaining questions we can. I believe we deferred one of the prior questions to this segment. If we could scroll back up, please. What's the last date for us to submit questions, and will the due date timeline for the RFP be available after we register?
Okay, the important thing to know about that question is the website is the RFP. This is not one process that allows you to then participate in a separate RFP. And so when you look at the timeline, you will need to register in order to submit questions regarding your application through the forums. However, as I mentioned, if you go to the bottom, the footer of every web page, there is a contact button, and that contact button will allow you to submit an email that will go through our ticketing system so we can respond to you specifically. However, if after the registration deadline you have not registered and yet you continue to ask questions, we will be committing the bulk of our resources to the registrants. So while you might be able to answer questions as long as this website is live, your real deadline for getting your questions answered regarding the application and the process is the registration deadline.
All right. Very good. Are the RFI responses public? Could you turn it over to Tanae Casey from the Homeless Initiative team?
Yes, hi. And so, yes, the RFI responses are public. At this point, we've received a Public Records Act request from companies requesting those proposals that we received during the RFI process. So if your agency or company is interested in those responses, you would need to submit a Public Records Act request.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to actually override that response rather than having everybody submit separate Public Records Act requests. Mm-hmm. So since those are publicly available, mm-hmm. we will post the RFI responses on the website. The common tool, the website for this challenge, so that anyone who wants to see them can, since they are publicly available. So there will be no need. There are 53 responses received to the RFI, and since they're subject to the Public Records Act request, we'll just simplify this process and post them on the website. All right, so the last, we are going to close. I'm going to ask Tanae to announce when the date and time of our second and final webinar.
Hi, this is Tanae again. So at this point, we are scheduled for February 11th at 1 p.m. And everyone who has registered for the competition will receive an email in regards to that webinar.
All right. There were two-way questions. I'm going to quickly answer those before we conclude the webinar. The first is, Does submitting 2 proposals have a negative impact on scoring? The answer is no. The proposals submitted in each of the 4 categories will be scored independently. Second question, any likelihood the application deadline would be extended? The answer is there is 0 possibility that the application deadline will be extended. I want to thank you all very much for your really thoughtful questions that reflect the depth of your engagement with this challenge and the depth of your interest in joining the countywide movement to prevent and combat homelessness. If you are interested, please do tune in to our next webinar. And again, if you have not registered on the website, please do so. Thank you very much.